We've all heard the horror stories in the music industry of artists, producers, songwriters, musicians even getting taken advantage of, whether it's a bad deal or it's a bad publishing situation or a bad publishing contract, bad co-pub deal. There's many reasons why artists find themselves in these situations, and it all boils down to credit and debt. We don't have a very good understanding of credit and debt. Now, we want to be famous so bad where we don't learn how to do the business portion, right? So if we don't learn how to do the business part of the music industry, and we don't set up a system, and we never learn how to sell our product directly, then we have to rely on another company or a record label or a publishing company to do that for us. Now, when we hire somebody to do that, or we sign to a label, they get majority of the cut because they're putting up all of the financial backing. Let's say on a standard traditional deal, they put up all the financial backing. They make 90 cents off every dollar. And this is what happens. This is how people get taken advantage of. And we can even look at the standard record deals where they work off what's called a 10% royalty. 10% royalty works like this. If you get $1 million deal, you owe them 10. Now, back in the day, back in the history, we would call that usury. Usury is when you charge an extreme amount of interest for loaning money, right? And what's crazy about these record deals is that there's certain things within these contracts that prohibit you from doing things like you can't, in a lot of these contracts that I've looked at, you can't build your own studio with the budget. But to the label's credit, a lot of artists don't think to negotiate these type of things. So what we have to do as artists, songwriters, and producers, we have to not borrow money. We have to get away from this concept of trying to get a record deal all together and make money from our inventions and our creativity. Because if you never borrow money or you never get into a record deal, and it doesn't mean that you're independent, because along the way, you could establish several partnerships that could lead you to sell off some of your equity where you have a bunch of established partnerships. That doesn't make you independent. But you have to approach the music industry from a concept of working for yourself. Whatever you create, you should own. And we have too many people being taken advantage of because they've never set themselves up from that position. I've been making a great living in music ever since I was 20 years old. And that's over 12 years in this business. And I did that by never taking money from anybody. And what me never taking money did was it forced me to be creative. It forced me to have to budget. It forced me to have to work hard and figure out certain areas in business that I didn't necessarily want to, but I had to survive if I wanted to make a living in music. So what you have to do is you have to just get away from the whole concept of even wanting to be signed and look at your music specifically as a product and wanting to sell. So if you could figure out a way to serve the people who are looking for what you sell directly, you can make a great living. But you never borrow money. The reason that you never borrow money is because you're never going to be able to get from under the debt. Only about 5% of artists that have ever taken record deals, only 5% of them have ever seen a royalty check. Now, this means that seeing a royalty check means that they've paid off the budget. Because usually what companies will do is, let's say you get a royalty situation or on a standard 10% royalty contract, they give you $1 million budget. You owe them 10. You make them 6, you still owe them 4. Now they just roll that debt into your second contract because yes, you've not made enough money to satisfy the original deal, but you made it $6 million. So it's profitable enough for us to give you another record deal with the other debt on top of that. So you'll never be able to get from under the debt. And it's all kind of things. And so to be able to take advantage. And then also, whenever we borrow money and people own our products and own our art and our intellectual property, it gives people the tendency to overcharge us in ways that are not quite ethical to a lot of people. And I knew that ever since I was young, even before I could understand what was going on, I was just like, there's going to be unethical practices, because when I started asking questions, nobody could explain to me how radio worked, or how publishing worked, or ownership of property to the finest extent, to understand how people made money. It's like, okay, publishing is 9.1 cents. You split it up between producer and songwriter. The artist gets paid this royalty, but we don't really understand who they have agreements with, and we don't know what they do to even make the money. So if you don't understand the game, then you have to go and create your own game. And it's not to say that record labels are completely bad people, because it's your property. And with it being your property, you have to take ownership of the fact that you need to understand how to move it and how to sell it. It's up to us to be able to make a living off that which we create. We have to use our creative ingenuity to be able to make a living. So if you want to make a living, don't take any debt. And I would say that not only with music, but for the rest of your life. If you build your life off creativity, yes, it's going to take longer. But when you get to that freedom and you don't have any debt, you could really live. So this was my spiel for today. If you guys have anything to add, like, comment, and subscribe.